This is my second go-around with Martin Logan's Motion series of speakers. The first time around was a few years back when I first started reviewing audio gear. I lived in the city in a small home, and I set those speakers up in my basement. This time around, I'm in a condo, a much smaller space, but now I have a much larger speaker. This is the Martin Logan XT F100 Floorstanding speaker. And this time, I'm going to get the price right. It's $4,500 US for the pair. And I'm curious to see how these fare, primarily because these don't look anything like the original ones that I reviewed. They look like completely different speakers, and I'm surprised that they're still calling them the Motion series because they're so much different. And of course, if you wouldn't mind liking this video and subscribing to the channel, it'll help me out a ton and help me get more products like this in for review. And then hopefully maybe like the smaller bookshelf versions or the smaller floor standers of the Motion series, because these ones, as awesome as they are, is too big. It's not the largest floor stander in the range, mind you. There's the larger F200 model that also has larger drivers. The range also consists of the XT B100 bookshelf and the XT C100 center channel, which also came shipped for the setup, which is no small center speaker. Also for this review came the Dynamo 10 subwoofer. All of the XT series is available in gloss black, walnut, and satin white. My samples arrived in white. There is also a regular Motion series with even more options and speakers that can make a full-blown home theater setup. But they sent me the big one, so big is going to be the word for this review. Starting off with the XT F100 floor stander, it measures 47 3/4 inches high, 12.5 inches wide, and 15 inches deep. It weighs about 76 pounds. The driver complement, you get a 1.25 inch by 2.5 inch folded motion XT tweeter that sits inside a horn-shaped waveguide. The mid-range is a 6.5 inch Kevlar cone, and it's rounded out by 3 6.5 inch aluminum bass cone drivers. This being a three-way speaker, crossover frequency is 280 Hz and 2600 Hz respectively. Frequency response is 31 Hz to 25 kHz. Recommended amp power is 20 to 450 watts, sensitivity is 92 decibels, and impedance is 4 ohms. The bass port is located on the bottom of the speaker, which is awesome for flexibility of placement, and around back it comes with 5-way binding posts. The giant center channel measures 8.5 inches high, 24 inches wide, and 14.5 inches deep. It weighs 34 pounds and retails for $14.99 US. It's also a rear-ported design with the same high-frequency driver and two 6.5 inch mid-bass drivers. The crossovers are 1300 Hz and 2500 Hz in a 2.5-way design. So both drivers operate until like the first crossover point, at which one of them rolls off and the other one keeps going to the next crossover point. Kinda cool. Frequency response is 42 Hz to 25 kHz. Recommended amp power is 20 to 300 watts. Sensitivity is 93 decibels. Impedance is 5 ohms, and you get the same 5-way binding posts. The subwoofer is awesome. The Dynamo 10 comes fitted with a 10-inch aluminum woofer and a 1000-watt peak power amplifier. A DSP engine with 64-bit processing, all housed in a 1-inch thick cabinet, and retails for $1,000 US. It measures 14 3/4 inches high, 13 3/4 inches wide, and 13 3/4 inches deep, and it weighs 42.8 pounds. Frequency response is 23 Hz to 120 Hz. It has an integrated wireless receiver, and a wireless transmitter is included in the package. It's finished in gloss white or satin white. The Dynamo 10 features a whole bunch of really cool stuff packed into it. Off the top, I mentioned that these don't look anything like the outgoing series, and one look at these speakers and you could tell that they spent a lot of time overhauling the industrial design of these speakers, and they did a really good job of that. The speakers have a premium look and feel. These speakers come with these pretty gray grills, including the subwoofer. They easily push into the drivers and they make for a smart looking presentation. I left them out for most of my time with them, but I would understand those with kids wanting to leave them in. The drivers that sit inside are silver with black surrounds, so the speakers look completely different with the grills off. The finish is nice, the cabinets are not seamless, and do have a chunky, boxy design with beveled edges. The included feet are amazing. They're called fast outrigger feet, and you can choose between the included rubber feet or spikes. I went with the rubber feet because it's just me moving these speakers around, so I don't want to mess up my floors. With the XT F100s being ridiculously large, they are pretty much resigned to one place in my room that's on either side of my media unit, just towed in towards my listening position a touch. The center is neat in that it has a slight angle and is flippable depending on how your room is set up. I have my media unit set up low, so I have the center angle up towards my listening position. It's also very deep, so I have to elevate it over the legs on the risers that I've fitted to my TV, so it encroaches onto the bottom of my TV a little bit, but fortunately when I watch movies, they're letterboxed, so it doesn't intrude very much. For the rears, I use the lovely Q Acoustics 5010. Connected to these speakers, I use the Marantz Cinema 60 with the front left pre-outed into the Evo 150 from Cambridge Audio and also the MA5300 from Macintosh. My sources were the Apple TV 4K, and with the Macintosh I connected the CXN V2 and the CXC CD player. I have the Dynamo 10 positioned off to the side, first to the right, but then I eventually moved it to the left side against the stupid floor-to-ceiling windows in my condo. I get the most out of a sub when I place it here. And then also connected to the Evo 150, I have the Bucart Sub 10 that I use for adding extra bass presence to my front speakers that I quickly realized that I didn't need whatsoever for these Martin Logan floor standers. Getting connected to the Dynamo 10 is a breeze. Just download the app, get connected over Bluetooth, you're off to the races. There is Arc Genesis on board, but you do need an optional mic and then software to enable it. And if I'm being honest, I was perfectly happy without it. It has 3 modes: music, movie, and night, a volume percentage scroll, a sweep function that's always fun to engage, a whole host of settings that you could tweak to your heart's content, low pass, phase, 20 to 30 hertz level, pretty much everything you need. With a package like this, you just can't help yourself to put on a whole bunch of movies that you absolutely love, and then sometimes movies that you don't really care for. The latter movie would be Blade Runner 2049. I'm not really a big fan of this movie, but it sounds absolutely amazing played through this system. It's a huge sounding flick, and for this purpose, it absolutely rules. Coming from listening to podcasts all day, it's jarring to see how much more full this sounds. Even in scenes where not much is going on, the score is still really big. There's a scene where he's just standing there looking at camera, and the score is just winding up and going really big. It's absolutely nuts. And these floor standers go low. I mean, like really low. Like I don't need a subwoofer low, but I had one, and so I implemented it, and altogether absolutely captivating. I absolutely love watching this movie on these speakers. I don't really care for what's going on, but it's cool. And the score just keeps giving with this system, seemingly boundless lows and massive detail. During the water fight scene, I found myself grabbing the app and turning down the sub to 36% from its 48% position, as I didn't want to piss off my neighbors. Compared to the rental package that I had, this felt bigger up front. I mean, that's understandable, there's 4 extra drivers. The centers are comparable, rich dialogue, very clear and engaging. I did find myself wishing to have the bipole surrounds back in place because those were kind of awesome. What I noticed coming off the rental package was how much more forward and in your face these speakers were. They were a touch more bright and exacting in nature, which makes me think that these could potentially be a bit more fatiguing over the long run in comparison to the rentals. So I decided to run another movie, another favorite, Arrival. The swings between silence and outright impact are amazing. The scene where the scientists arrive by helicopter to the alien craft the first time is a nice listen on this package. There's dialogue, helicopter, music, atmosphere. The scenes I love the most, though, are when the scientists are talking to the heptapods inside the ship. Just going from the more quiet dialogue of Amy Adams or Jeremy Renner to the heptapods walking or speaking however they do, just the contrast between that is awesome. The train crash scene from Super 8 is something else on these. It's a type of scene that needs to be turned up as loud as you could possibly stand it. And in my case, it wasn't all the way to ear-splitting levels because in my room, these speakers go far louder than I could ever want them to go. And it's with this movie that I felt like I could just shave down the highs on the floor standers a touch via the Macintosh just to be a bit more palatable to my ears. The subwoofer got a real workout during movies, and even though the floor standers are running full range and they have ample bass weight to them, there is an extra channel of sound going to the sub, and I'd rather have it than not have it. But I did find myself, when I did turn the volume up, that I needed to just rein back the subwoofer a little bit, just because there was so much output for my space that my usual settings of about 40% were a bit too high. Reining it back down to about 35 were perfect for my space. The XT F100s are absolute beasts with music. Everything that I slammed through them sounded amazing. It was really similar to my experience with the Focal Aria Evo X's, so I took the liberty of running these alongside the Macintosh MA5300 without a subwoofer. And I tell you this, I didn't miss it whatsoever. Take the welcoming from his presence, the drums hit really hard, and the bass just pumps right on through. But because it's a three-way speaker, the driver separation, and the fact that the tweeter sits about a foot above my ear height, there's just so much more air up top, and the top-to-bottom sound is just huge. And then playing Coming Home from Leon Bridges, it's a full-bodied sound, wonderful instrument separation, a really engaging listen. Though I will say again, when I do turn the volume up, I find myself wanting to keep it at a moderate level just so I can enjoy the music. When I do take it up, it does err on the edge of brightness for me, so I do want to just rein back the treble a touch on the Macintosh, though I imagine results will vary depending on the size of your room. Mine would be on the far smaller side for speakers like this. I imagine you would want a far larger room than me to properly enjoy these speakers. I think next time I might just request the smallest Floorstander from the Motion series, just because I think this one's too big. And if you couldn't tell by the outfit switches, I originally got the price wrong, and I stupidly thought the per piece price of $24.99 was the per pair price. I don't know how I screwed that one up, but my conclusion at $24.99, supposedly for the pair, was, oh my God, this is a crazy deal. And it turns out it's not. $4,500 gets you a pair of these speakers. And therefore, my conclusions change a little bit, because now at that price, there are a few speakers that I actually reviewed that are somewhat comparable. Starting with the Focal Aria Evo X No. 3 speaker, that too is a large three-way floor-standing speaker. My review samples arrived in a beautiful moss green with leather fronts and flax cone drivers. They retailed for $51.98 US. Like the Martin Logans, they impressed me by reinvigorating my music collection and making everything sound brand new and better. From my memory, they dug just as low, and they were equally as expansive. Their sound is, how do I say this, less exciting, but it makes them easier to accommodate, though this is a matter of taste. Visually, I prefer the look of the Martin Logans, though I did have a friend in that thought that the Martin Logans looked a little bit too monolithic and imposing. The next speaker is the Quad Revela 2. It's a smaller speaker in stature with one less driver, and it retails for $44.95 US for the pair. They are closer in spec to the regular Motion F20 speakers. My completely biased sample size of one opinion is that the Quad Revela better suits my own personal space here because it is a smaller speaker, it's easier to accommodate, and the tweeter lines up perfectly with my ear height when I'm seated on my couch. However, they are only available in high gloss finishes, which may not be for everyone, and they may not fill out a larger space as much as the former two options do. Nor are they as full range as the other two speakers. And the last speaker is the Sonus Faber Lumina 5 Amateurs, which retail for $34.99 US a pair. Like the quads, they are smaller in stature, they are short one driver, and they do require a sub to hit the same depths as the Martin Logans. The Lumina 5 shares a similar, but not the same, sonic characteristic as the Focals, where they make all of your music sound great, and they're also, forgive me for this description, the most romantic and complimentary to your music, where they just have a certain way of making everything sound better. And they're also the prettiest speaker out of the bunch. Out of the lot, this is maybe the most room-friendly, wife-friendly speaker out of them all. So in all, the Martin Logan XT F100 is a big, imposing brute of a speaker. And it's a near full-range speaker, and in a decent-sized room, you could probably get away without a subwoofer. Though, if this is not enough speaker for you, you can always step up to its bigger brother, the XT F200 speaker. And I will not be requesting that speaker because I think I need to try out one of their smaller speakers for my own room because, honestly, I think I'd get more out of it. Thanks for watching.